Hello and welcome to the United Devil with me, JB. I hope we're doing really well this week. So Bobby's already in the chat. Hi, Bobby. I hope you are doing really well. So I'm not at work this week, which is always a good thing. What are we? The ninth today? God, the ninth already is here, and God, yeah, this week is going so fast. This month is going so fast. Today, no one is chopping down the tree outside, which is always good. It was an awful tree. It was like an awful spiky tree. The missus is actually not at home today, so hopefully everything should be fine. There's a story behind the broadband as well, which is a pain in the ass. But anyway. Today's show, Rashford is back. So yeah, we can get our thoughts in on the Rashford show. The circus is back in town, and probably the biggest clown of all is back. Now, am I being fair to Rashford? I think from the offset, I think he's made his bed, and he needs to lie in that as well. There's something else I want to talk about as well, which is to do with training yesterday and the comments that Amarin made, and some of you guys who are not the biggest Amarin fans who are already on that fence. I don't think it's. I think the writing is potentially on the wall. So Rashford, why is he back? So even though Rashford last week was told to basically not come back, even to the point where the number 10 shirt was removed from him, and he was part of that quartet of players told to stay away, don't come back, try and find yourself a move. And lo and behold, Rashford has reported back and is back there now. Training wise, he's not in with the first team. So from what I've seen, from what I've read, from what I've listened to, Rashford is not back with the first team. He is actually training on his own. Now, let's just think about that. And Bobby says, I'll be happy to see the back of Rashford. I agree with you completely. I completely agree. I think the circus again is, and I think there's a couple of points to make, I think, on this. And obviously feel free to get your points in as well. So number one, first thing to say is that if Rashford does come back and he goes on tour and he's any part of this, even already, if he is, the fact that he's here, and it's a good move by his PR team. I think it's a really good move by him. Not that I support that move, not that I think that move is right, but from a media perspective, how do Rashford's team combat United's kind of move? It's like a really bad when you play chess and we're trying to think 2 or 3 steps ahead, but whoever Rashford's team is around him, as much as I from a purely move making perspective, I mean, they have played this well. So they told him to go back to training, just kind of as if he's back in the team, even though he's not. So what that means is that there is a media circus around here again. Any interview that the manager will do, and he will do many, because that's all he seems to do. Every question is going to be around Rashford. Any question is going to be about when is he going to play in the team. So Bobby, that's really kind of you. I that is amazing. Thank you so much for posting the channel and sharing the channel. That is amazing. I can't thank you enough. What I'm trying to do here, what I'm trying to build here is, I know there are lots of other communities out there, who profess to have real chat, and there are loads and loads of fantastic ones out there. What I will always try to do here is, what I really think is really important is to get you guys into the chat. What I really want to do is obviously try to keep this channel as free as I can. This for me is is a passion, and it's not really about making any cash. So what I want to do here is basically talk about most things. I'm not going to ban anything to talk about. I know some people get bored of it, but what's important to you and what's important to me, I think we need to talk about that. I do like talking about the most outlandish of things. So if there's any players, any topics that you want to talk about, as long as we're friendly, I think as long as we are, the first thing to say is that we can disagree, but I think opinion is really important. I think we need to consume as much as we can. I comment all the time, and people on other places don't really tend to like that, because I try to put a balanced view through. That's what I want to create here is, if you want to come in and you are really staunch on your views and you really know this is what I believe in, again, come here and absolutely fine. But as long as we are respectful, then I think that is the most important thing here. So Bobby, mate, that is amazing. Thank you so much. So Rashford, PR machine that's sitting behind him, he's going to come back, and the longer he's here, the more questions that United are going to get asked. So I think the first thing to say is that from Rashford, I think that's a great move. It's clearly not his move, but the team of people around him, you know, the biggest problem with him is his ego. Do I think this is a play for him to actually come back? No. I think one of the worst things that we could do or would happen is if he's allowed on the American tour. Now, I think what the next question maybe would be, or the next observation would be, why is he coming back to training? No, why don't we just not allow him to come back to train with the first team? Now, there is the players, there's the welfare of the players, and they are kind of protected. So if we can extend their time off, but if he wants to come back when everyone else is, footballers have rights to. Footballers are human, so he is allowed to come back to train. However, we can stick him in wherever we want to. He is training on his own. You are absolutely correct there. So I think the intention from Rashford, which I think is petulant and is just it's just a dick move completely, but from his perspective, I guess he's trying to protect his own interest, because right now nobody wants this player. So is he coming back hoping that the manager and the club are forced to bring him in and play him, or is this just a power play to say, look, if you don't let me go, you don't find me a move, because he can't find his own move, I'm going to disrupt this team. And how we can do that is because nobody can stop him from talking to other players in the team. Nobody can stop him from talking to the youth players. The youth players look up to this player. So this is all about disruption. This is all about him coming back into the club, thinking that he's this, amazing player that's got all this impact on the club, and he hasn't. I think you're right as well. I think I think this is more happened behind closed doors, but what I'm hoping for, that this is just a move for him to say, look, I don't want to come back to this club. I don't want to play. He doesn't have the number 10 shirt. Even if you're looking at it from your own personal view, right? If you went to work and they didn't want you there, but they were allowed to take away your desk, take away your stuff, take away your pens, your pencils, are you going to want to go and back into the workplace? Are you going to want to go and sit down there with all your mates? No, you're not. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make their life as hard as you possibly can. And I think this is what this is. This is all about Rashford trying to win a battle of PR. But it just goes to show in my view, the level of mentality, the arrogance of this players. And again, if you don't feel this way and you think that he's right to do that, and you don't understand why we're treating him in this way, then that's your opinion, and feel free to let us know how you feel about that. So I think Rashford will move. I think this is the onus again. It's like it's like the onus now, it seems to be they're trying to push it back onto United to get this player out because he can't find his own move. And the problem with that as well is he only wants to move to Barcelona. But Barcelona at the moment, I think, are going to hang on until the end of the window to try and get some sort of cut price as they do, because that's the nature of what they do. They don't want to pay top whack. They don't really want to pay the wages. So Rashford I think he's just going to hold off. And I wonder if we're going to be firm enough to say, well, actually, no. Um, so Joel Melmin says, thank you and hi, and I hope you pronounced your name right. I apologise if not. Rashford can train exactly, and again, you've just said what I've just said there. You know, you're absolutely right. He's protected. There's a contract in place, and even above that, there is a level where players are protected as well. So there's nothing that we can do, but as you said there, he doesn't have to train with the first team unless it's in his contract, which hopefully I don't think we're stupid enough to do. But he's back at Carrington, and I think him just being there, I think what this is more about, and you can correct me here if I'm wrong, really, on this, is that this is not about him coming back to train. This is about him showing up. He knows the media circus that surrounds him. This is more about causing an issue to the club. And when he does that, he's not thinking about the Man United fans. He's not thinking about the club. And it is his right to do so because he has a contract, and nobody forced us to give him the contract. But when you are thinking about your own personal pride, in my opinion, we can honour the contract. That's not my viewpoint here. My viewpoint here is that he knows that he doesn't want to be, yet he's trying to cause as much disruption as possible. And whatever your viewpoint on that is, it doesn't sit well with me. And the saddest thing is that, you know, he comes, you know, he's been there since he was a boy, and I just think that whatever you think about him as a player, at the end of the day, he's still a reasonably young man, and I think it's really sad the way that it's ended. I think as much as Rashford is to blame, I think, you know, he doesn't help himself. I don't think his team do. I think whoever's in his team, he needs to sort that out. But that's for someone else to sort out. But I don't think Amarin has helped the situation. I don't think the club has either. So I think it's just one big mess that both parties need to come to terms with, and kind of need to get that split and need to agree to disagree and just get this completely done. Bobby says, so Barcelona will rip us off big time. 100%. That is what they like to do. That is their MO. You know, is that just the fact that they operate in a really good way? They don't mind if they wait to the end of a window to get a cut price deal. Rashford, I think that is what they'll do. I think they'll wait to the end of the window, try and get him down to 25, 30 million, or offer some sort of loan deal whereby we're going to pay half. And then at that point, we'll discover what sort of club that we actually are. And I think that's open completely. I mean, I just like the buy-in stuff seems to have quieted down. I think with Rashford, I think we need to batten down the hatches and be prepared for the next couple of weeks. On this one, I think he will get his move, but I'll be really interested to see what the club do. Are we going to act like a big club? So let's move on. I think we won't waste any more time on Rashford, but you know, I think sadly that's probably one of the biggest news. Is when I don't really want to talk about it, I want to be talking about transfers into this club. So Bobby says, what about the rest? Sancho, Anthony, Malacia. Do you think we could get rid of them this summer? So Sancho, Malacia, I think is an easy one. I don't want to spend too much time on that. So Celtic apparently have come in for him with a bid of 3 million. So it looks like potentially that would be a decent move for him. So I think that is a a probable one there. We're not going to make a huge amount of money on him. I don't even know if we'll break even on that. It'd be interesting to see if we just get him out the door. We do make something on it potentially. So Celtic have come in for him. So fingers crossed that one is going to move now. Sancho's a very interesting one. So depending on whichever reports that you read, so Fenerbahce and Juventus. Now there is a lot of Sancho-y stuff out there, and I still think it's very. So the bit that I don't get. So Sancho potentially Juventus is in talks, and apparently there is a deal pretty much there to be done. They're trying to work out the kind of little bits, and I think what that is the wages. I think they're trying to get the wages. Now, one of the things I will say that I think is a little bit of an indication as to why I think this will happen. So Vlahovic has had his contract ended. So they've terminated his contract. So Vlahovic, I think, was on about 280 to 300k. So they've agreed to end that contract today. So is that an indication of they are trying to manipulate a deal here? They're trying to actually free up some funds so they can get this deal over the line. So I think from that perspective, I think Juventus, from the things that I've read on X and whatever else, I do believe that Juventus are making a really hard play, and I think there's an agreement in all parties between Sancho and Juventus and United. I'll just be interested to see how we're going to get the deal, how we're going to structure the deal, and what we're going to do, particularly around the wage. So I do think that one's going to get done, unless it absolutely collapses. And Sancho is unwilling at the last to take a pay cut. I suspect that we will find out in the coming months that we've paid a big chunk. Perhaps we've paid half of his contract out. But again, if Sancho goes, then again, that's another impact. Can you imagine Rashford and Sancho, the pair of those two, still at the club? So I think Sancho, I've criticised this player a lot. I'm not his biggest fan. I think his attitude stinks. I think Rashford is slightly different, but Sancho, I just think he absolutely stinks, to be honest with you. So if we can get him out, then as long as we can break even on that, then I think that's done. Anthony, again, some of the indications, and I spoke to somebody actually, and basically what they've said is that Anthony is proving hard to do because he wants to go to Betis, and that's where his heart is set on. And they're still trying to work out some sort of deal whereby potentially Anthony could go on loan. There'll be kind of like a small like a fee for this year, and then they can work that into a deal. So they almost postpone the transfer until next year, and then they almost structure that deal. So I think we're going to start seeing some of these kind of strange deals whereby maybe we'll loan them out with an obligation to buy, an actual obligation this time, and we kind of allow these players to go. So I think Anthony will go. As respect to him, as much as he wasn't the right sort of player and we've overpaid. If we come out of this and we break even on this deal, then happy, really, really like happy day. So I do think that Anthony is going to go. I think it's going to take a little while. No noise sometimes I think is a good noise. So I think that as much as it's frustrating right now, these deals are not happening, and I'm not happy, and I'm not giving the Glazers and Ineos an inch. And the fact that it's really sad that I've got to say this, the fact that we just, for your own sanity, it's almost, I'm come to the conclusion that these are going to take ages to do. So I'm not looking at it now in weeks. I'm looking at it now until the end of the window. Doesn't mean to say I'm not going to call them out. Doesn't mean to say that I'm always going to bang that drum. But I just think that we kind of almost need to put it at the back of your mind, and just see where we are in August. Joel, Vlahovic looks a bit out of a job at Juventus when it happens. I think Sancho, exactly. I think as we've just said there, I think you're right. I think the Vlahovic termination of the contract, I think, is an indication of what they're trying to do, what Galatasaray are doing with Osimhen. Osimhen, they are basically trying to get funding in place and sponsorship in place to get that deal done. And Juventus, I think, are trying to get that deal done by offloading and trying to get Sancho in by terminating a contract of Vlahovic. Now, Vlahovic, we can start talking about some of the signings for us. So on the thumbnail, I've got Aubameyang from Al Qadsia. I probably butchered that completely. Aubameyang is, again, and I saw something yesterday, and I never actually thought about this until they mentioned it. So another channel mentioned this yesterday, and I can't remember who it was, but I think they made an absolute great point that they said that I guarantee that will be linked to him. And Aubameyang already reports are saying that we are linked to him. Again, he's left, and Aubameyang is being linked to us as another free agent. And I put this transfer or potential talks or whatever it is up in there in line with Calvert-Lewin, and I'm not going to spend too much on this because it's just again, what I am going to say is that we have been saying this on here for a couple of weeks now, for a month, but no one else was talking about this. And doesn't mean that and I'm sure many of you have been thinking about this as well, because, you know, if I think about it, I know you guys in the chat are extremely smart, and you're going to think about this as well. Calvert-Lewin, the moment that I knew he was going to be a free agent, just purely because we were linked to him last year, I think it was, I'm still convinced that deal is there or there to do. So I put him in the same realm and the same the category as a Vardy. No, not DCL. I know. I feel like if I don't speak about him, then I feel like it will happen. Because if I forget about him, then I feel like it will happen. So I put him up there with that. I put him up there with Vardy. I put him up there with all those three strikers. So what I'm hoping, but this is just agent link, you know, because our name gets bandied around because obviously they want to link us to as many players as possible to get their clients a move. The only time that I will really think that will move for any of these players is if we get later into the window and we haven't got a striker, and we panic, which the possibilities are there. So I'm what I'm hoping for. I've got like a little tick box, right? So all these players that I don't particularly want here, anytime I hear that, or anytime now that they move or they go to the States or they go to wherever else, I just tick them off the list, and fingers crossed that they do. So Vlahovic is out of the free agents, could be an option, depends on his wages. He could work for a year. So, Joel, I think that's an interesting point. Now, let me put this to the chat, right? Vlahovic, what I'm going to say on him is that I've looked at his injury record, and not that he's had many injuries as such, but he has multiple ones a year. So he's not out for weeks or months upon him, but he does get 3 or 4 injuries a year. Now, would you rather Vlahovic for a year or Rashford for a year? And as crazy as that sounds, I'd be interested to know if we couldn't get another striker now that Vlahovic is free. Bearing in mind he was on 280 to 300k. If we, I'm going to think about this now, and I think that Giles made a good point and opinion there, so I think that's worth discussing. If he's a free agent, I think that if we started to go right, okay, players like that who he's had a torrid time, but we need to factor in that the Italian league, I'm not saying it's worse, I'm saying it's a slower league, and he's had injuries. Now, whether that's just unlucky, whether that's just like him, how would how would he be if he came to a league that is quicker and probably a little bit more physical, just in terms of the pace of the game? Could he? So the number one question there is: could Vlahovic last? Could his body? And you've made a good point there. He is a left foot striker and 25. Could his body last up to the Premier League? So if you could go forward in time, or you could do a medical on this player just to see where he's at and come to the conclusion, even though we've done this before and we've signed injury prone players. Vlahovic is a really interesting one. I think now that he's free and there's no fee involved, I would be interested to see how he would do. Now, in terms of a contract, he's 25 years old. Now, the sticking point for me is, I don't know about anyone else, is that if we were to offer him a 5-year deal, because that's what we tend to do, at 250k a year, because obviously he's going to be free. One game a week, I think he would last. Do you know what, Joel? I completely forgot about that. Thank you for that. I completely forgot about that. Absolutely 100% forgot about that. And actually, that's a good point there. Okay, this season, yeah. Man Lutata, don't know why. Just find Vlahovic similar to Rasmus in physique and finishing. Interesting. I think that's a good debate point there for the chat. But we can talk about all this stuff. We've got time, and I think all these points are great, and we can debate these out and we can talk about these. So Vlahovic on the plus points, as we said there, he's got a left foot and he's 25. Okay, so in terms of that age, left foot, brilliant, right? I think absolutely fantastic. I think that is definitely a plus point. Red flag, injuries in a slower league. How's he going to fare in a more physical, quicker league? Okay. What are could I would happily take a punt on him if we could get a contract in terms of Sellock. We could do a 2+1 or a 3+1. What I don't want is, I'd be more than happily to take a risk. It would be I think it would be a risk. But if we could get the contract right, a 2+1 or a 3+1, and we get him in at the correct wage, considering we've missed everybody else, and Vlahovic at one stage was an absolute beast. And as you said there, as a maverick, as a redemption story, I think as a redemption arc, I actually think it's got the potential there. But again, should we take the risk? And I think you've summed it up there. I think that if the contract is right, and I think the age is right, I think as you said there, we've got one game a week, and I think we need to factor that in. I think if we do a 2-year plus one, that already takes him into 2 years. And even at worst case, even if he's then injured for the best part of 18 months, I'd much prefer that than him being injured for like 4 years. So if we can get the contract right, he's 25 years old. If we can literally have a year or two, as you said there, we are playing one game a week. I completely forgot about that. I actually agree. I think that's probably worth a punt. But as long as it's not a 5-year deal, even if it was a 5-year deal at 150k, then potentially yes. But Vlahovic, I think we should stick a. I think we should keep an eye on that one. And I definitely think that would be a an interesting one to do, and I'd be interested and keen to see if we would move on that one. What else are we saying in the chat? Man Latutu, don't worry. You worry that you think he's similar to Rasmus in physique and finishing. I do, but I think he's Rasmus, but better. And in any other circumstances, Vlahovic is. I think he's that. I think he's that kind of striker that I think we want. Physical, left foot, 25 years old. So I think he is. Bobby, there you've made a really interesting statement, and I'll come back to that. And if you're right, then you've been the first one to say that in the chat. So Vlahovic, interesting option. I don't think I'd be opposed to it. Yeah. So what else are we saying in the chat? High question. Having made 2 bids for Mbeumo, 55% in the second, does that mean that United has had the funding for Mbeumo? Interesting point there. So Mbeumo, we will do that. So where do I think that we are with that? I think we are going to get this deal done. So Mbeumo has been allowed to stay in LA, where he's training on his own, and he's been allowed by the club to stay there. So United, I think, are going to get this deal done. I wonder how we're going to do it in terms of what it is that we're actually what are we arguing about. But to come to that point about the funding, so we are potentially now going to get some money from the Alanga deal as well, for I think 6 million from that as well, and Alvaro Fernandez when he goes to Real Madrid. So I think you're right. I think the funding is now there, and potentially both for Sancho and both for the Mbeumo deal. Vlahovic termination is a good indicator. These sell-on clauses that we have, will it give us enough funds from both of those deals to be able to go to Brentford and go, here's the money for that, and for Sancho, here's like to pay you off, because I'm convinced that we're going to have to pay him off on funds that we didn't know and we couldn't plan to get. So actually, it's worked out pretty well. Have we been lucky? And we've managed to be able to get these deals across the line because we've been fortunate. Ineos obviously weren't involved in these deals, and I think it was very, very fortunate. But I do think that these funds that we have need to be used, get this Mbeumo deal done, and Sancho moved on. Højlund will come good next season. Pin this, lol. Bobby, I think that's a really bold statement to make. If he's here next season, I would love Rasmus to become good next season. I would love him again. Bearing in mind we have one game a week, other than cups, obviously, and Amrin has a lot of time to spend with his players. And I think there's a good point on that as well. I kind of wanna make that as well. Actually, I'll make that in a bit. Amrin, I think if Rasmus, I think he can. If he thinks there's a player there, I think Rasmus will stay. But I worry that Rasmus needs a breakaway from this club, because I think his confidence is absolutely shot. Can he get that confidence back? Is a question. And I think if we get a Vlahovic or another striker to ease that load and to teach him, he needs a teacher. You know, we asked him to lead the line at 20 years old, and he's just those are some big boots to fill. And I don't. The only player I'm thinking who is a young kid who could lead that line was Rooney, and Rooney he is not. So interesting. I am going to pin that. So when we do start the season, if he comes good, then that's all on you. So I will more than happily give you credit and a shout out for that. We are unable to offload 6 players wanting to leave Norway. Rasmussen and Nana is leaving. As it stands, agreed completely. Onana, I don't believe he's going to go anywhere at all. Again, contract wise, and I'm going to say this, that as a club, we have no power. We act like a small club. We are big clubs. We should be getting these players out the door. We should be powerful, but we're not. So there is still player power that exists here, and I'd really wish it didn't exist. Now, I've been supporting this club now for 38 years. I'm 42, so I've been here early doors since 1988. God, I feel old. So I've seen it all. I've never seen this level of player power. I have seen it over the last 5 to 6 years, but this player power is still there and is still going to exist. Ineos knew this when they did their strategic review and they bought the club, and they would have done all this. So I've got no sympathy with them at all, and this is Ineos's problem to fix. But I think you're right. Onana is refusing to leave. I think Rasmus, to be fair to him, he doesn't want to leave. But I do think and from reports that I've read and heard and seen, that if Rasmus is asked to go, then he will go. I think he's the sort of player that is quite respectful to this club. I think he knows what it means to play for this club. And I do believe that Rasmus is he is the character. He's that young man that really needs that kind of keen goals gigs around him to give him kind of that not pride, but he does have that. He strikes me as this player who's a really respectful, knows what it is to play for this club. But right now, his confidence is shot. He's got nobody there to teach him the tricks of the trade, and it's really hard. It's really, really hard. So I'm 45, and I think you're younger than you are. Man, Latata, you are a legend. Thank you so much. Yeah, I am 42 years old, my friend, and I appreciate that. And age is just a number. I think what keeps me young is having kids. It does make the hair go grey. But I do play a lot of sport as well. So yeah, thank you for that. That's very, very kind, and I appreciate that a lot. What does Giles say? It looks like we will have about 12 million Salon from Malanga, Alvaro, and the third player will come from an academy will give us 2 million. And again, that is 12 million. That what can we do with that? I think if that goes back into the club to get these deals done, or are the Glazers going to pocket it? Because ultimately they still need to be paid out. I think as long as we are watching, I think as long as we get this money, and as long as fans we are aware of where this money goes, because it is ultimately our money for our players. And I think as long as that is invested back into the team, I think we can start to do these deals. And we can start to push these deals on, because that is what we need to do. So Jokeres improved under Amarin and Sporting. Why not Rasmus? I'm going to pin that for 1 second. We can come back to that as well. So if I don't come back to that, I will do, because I want to talk about that as well. Good point. So Milton, hi there. Joker has played for many clubs before his 54 goals for Sporting. Some of his clubs were average only. Good point. Sadly for him. But again, Rasmus, thinking about him in regards to that, he is a young kid, and I'll be gutted. I'll be absolutely gutted if he went to another team. So maybe he'd have to. When I say this, I mean this in the greatest respect. If he has to drop down, and what I mean is that to be fair, to go lower than us. I mean, as of now, he'd have to drop low. But what I mean by that is if he needs to take a step back to learn his trade through a more experienced striker, if I was him and we don't bring in a striker who can teach him and learn and play together and kind of learn that trade, I would take a step back and go to a club and play with a striker who can help me, who can teach me. Now, do I think I'm on the fence? If he goes, he goes. But I would like to see him stay and play with somebody who's a bit more experienced because he's so young. But what I'd be so gutted to see, but I would be pleased for him, is if he went to a team, played with another striker, and you just know by the time he's Vlahovic's age, 25, stays injury free, keeps on with the attitude that he's got. He could be some player. He could be some player. But are we the right club at the wrong time? Are we just the wrong club for him? So I think wherever you fall with Rasmus, whether you want him gone because you don't think he's great, or whether you want him to stay and play with the striker or put him on loan, I think all possibilities are there. But me personally, I really want to see him do well. Even if he leaves, I really want to see him do well. I'd like to see him stay for another year, but I'm just not entirely sure. 25 are watching. Yeah, that is amazing. Thank you so much. It does really, really mean a lot to me. Just, I'm just the same as everyone else. I'm just a fan who've been supporting this club for a long time. It's nice to get these things out in my head and talk to you guys. I basically live in a house of girls and nobody cares about this stuff. So being dad and wherever else, is really nice to come on here and just have a football chat, the same as you would do with your friends in the pub, and we can just shoot the breeze. You can tell me your opinions, and again, we'll say this: as long as we are respectful and you know your opinions, I'm not gonna block you from talking about stuff. Really, if you want to talk about the same thing, let's just talk about it, because that's what we do as fans, right? So Milton says some funding is coming through and it should be. I agree with you 100%. That funding needs to come through. So from these players, as Jarlath said, that it looks like we're going to get about 12 mil from the clauses that we've put into the contracts, and that 12 million should go straight to the team. It would be, not that we'll ever know, but I would love to know what is happening, and I'm hoping that the Mbeumo do this will push this over the line for this week. But in relation to that, and really interesting point is, so there's two things here. So Mbeumo is in LA, and we are going to go on tour to the States, and on the 16th of this month, the new black kit comes out as well. So I am, call me a, can't think of the word now, but I think that Mbeumo will be done by the time the black kit comes out. I think that he'll get done this week. He should get done this week. I think he'll be done. I think we'll get a, here we go. The next, could be today, could be the next two days. And again, it is chuck it up in the air. But I do think we're coming to the end game now on this deal. I think we'll get a, here we go by Friday, and I think he'll be in the black kit by next week. So I think that's what we'll do. We'll try and time it. If not, then I really wonder what the hell we're doing. I do think you're right there. So Milton says if Mbeumo is in LA, it looks like the transfer. Yeah. So he's been told, and there's an extended leave for him. I agree with you. I think this deal is about to get done. People have been saying now for two weeks it's about to get done. Blah 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 blah. I do think now, I was a little bit not concerned, but there was a little tiny part of me that thought that someone else could come in and try to swoop for this player. But I just don't think that will happen now. I do believe that this will get done this week. I'm more confident this week, particularly with that black kit coming out. And I do think that he'll get done, and I think he'll be in that black kit. Whether or not, I just think I think the timing is perfect. I think we've got these funds through now, so I do think that he's going to be done this week. It wouldn't surprise me if it happened today. Here we go on Mbeumo today. I think that is a possibility. If not today, I think stick a pin in it for Friday. Get the medical done over weekend in LA, ready for that tour. So I think that's why United are only chasing exactly that. And that's why I think it will get done. I think there's too much work gone into it now. I just think we just need to just agree a price. And I think, to be honest, I think what we're trying to do now is save face effectively, because we don't want to be seen to be paying 70 million. But when Alanga is going for 55 million, the market and the price is set. So I think one of the last things I wanted to sort of come onto this, and this is kind of what I've been banging on about for the last 4 or 5 shows: training. So everybody is back, or those who want to be back are back, and everyone's smiling and everyone's doing loads of stuff, which is nice to see, because it just means that football is coming back, and I'm looking forward to it. As much as last season was horrific, I still want to watch the games, and I'm still the same as I was when I was 4 years old, the same as I was when I was 5, 6, 7. Is that feeling that you get in August time when football's coming back. This World Club Cup is a load of garbage, and it's just not the same. It's not the same as a World Cup. It's not the same as when the clubs come back. And I remember being a kid and used to have the what do you call it? The fantasy teams, right? So this is the start of year now where the fantasy league in the sun that was out. Now, for all us people who used to play it back in the day, you used to have to go to the Sun, physically buy a copy of the Sun, and every week the actual points would be printed in the paper. So we used to spend hours with A4 sheets of paper before the start of the season, and we used to just like write your names in there. And at school, everything was by hand, and you used to have to study and like, analyze the players and the new players, and you'd be like trying to take a punt on these players. So this is that time of year for me where I start to think about that, and I do miss the old kind of Sun and playing fantasy league in the Sun. There are more ads and pundits in. So now, as we say, there is this feeling now that I can't wait to come back. Now, these players have come back, and by all accounts, and this is out there, this has been reported across the various media outlets, is that Amarin has come back, and he apparently is happy, relaxed, and calm. I'd be interested, before I go further on my point on this, and this does come back to some of the other points about Anana leaving, Rasmus leaving, etc. Wonder what you think about Amarin saying that he's happy and he's relaxed and he's calm, and this will come back to Rasmus as to that kind of why Amarin could do what he did with other players, but not with him. My immediate perception of that is that, has Amarin now turned into yet another Glazer puppet? Ineos and the Glazers are still pulling the strings of this club. Now, the fact that he's coming out and he's saying that he's relaxed and he's calm and he's happy, does he forget what happened last season? Does he forget that we finished 15th, and whether or not it was his fault? Which there were some red flags for me, and I've already spoken about these red flags. This comes back to the Rasmus point. He had more than enough time to do something. I know we had a lot of games, and not enough time on the training pitch, but I wonder what he actually did there, or whether it was just he was told, look, we don't care this year. You'll get your pre-season in with these players, and then you can be concerned about it next year. So he's come back, and I wonder if now if he's starting to toe the party line, and if this is the case, if he is happy and relaxed and calm in this window, and it transpires he feels that he can work with these players, then exactly, is it you're right, Milton, is it conversely that he says, I'm not happy with things here and I'm very, very anxious? Obviously he can't come out and that's something that he can't say, that he can't come out. Well, he could. There are many stories out there where Ruben is not happy at all, and this is and again I've seen those as well. But the latest update is that he's very happy, calm, and relaxed with this team. And to go back to the 2 points there, I don't believe that, and we can talk about that. So in a what if that was the case, then I worry, absolutely worry about that. If he's happy and comfortable finishing 15th, particularly with the decision he made in the final around some of those players, and it was his right to do so, has he become a Glazer puppet? And if he has, then the writing is already on the wall. Now, let's go back to the comments where I align more with that. There are things that he can't say, and I completely agree with that. There are things that he can't come out to his employees. He could and basically say, look, I'm shitting myself. We are a shambles of a club. You've given me this team after promising me Quenda, after you promised me all these things, and yet I now have Rashford coming back into this team. I now have one player in this team. What am I supposed to do with this team? We've got one game a week, yes, and we can spend more time. And that's one of the comments that apparently that was said, was that he would have more time on the training pitch with these low IQ players who can only play in one particular way, and he's going to be expected to have more time on the training pitch, and you can't polish a turd. And I mean, that is a thing. He does have Cunha. He will alone improve us so much next season. And Milton said maybe because next season the toy is yet to start. Played none, lost none. That is an excellent point. Right now he's at 100%, so he's up on last season. I think you're right on Cunha. I think Cunha will improve us a lot, and I think where Cunha, and you can tell me where you think Cunha will improve us. I think that Cunha will improve us with his mindset. And again, I don't want to disrespect clubs because I'm not in a position to do that. I would never do that, and I'm not where we finished last year. We not us, because it's not fair on us, but the club need to be more humble. So the fact that we got him from Wolves, the fact that he's in the Brazil team, he strikes me as a very hungry, as a very, I don't want to say it, but a very Cantona-esque player. Not even in the bracket in terms of that, but he just has that aura to a lesser extent. But he has that aura. He sort of has that give me the ball, and if you don't, I'm going to tell you. And also as well, what I'd love to know, which we'll never find out now, because United and is it who was it? Was it Apple or somebody who were going to do a TV deal and do a fly on the wall? But that's not going to happen now. But I'd love to be a fly on the wall. It's Cunha. I think he'll grab people. I think he'll tell them, I think he's going to be a leader. I don't think he's going to suffer fools. And people at Wolves have already said, he's the kind of he not that he causes issues, but he'll speak his mind, and he's the type of player that will talk his mind and he'll start a fight. And this is kind of, I do think this is what we need. We need these players. Somebody needs to speak out, um, and not cause a fight just to be petulant fool, but just to be passionate about this club and start kicking these players and start raising the game. So when we even taking out his goals, taking out his play, it's just the attitude of these players that we need to bring in to this club. So I do think he will improve us a lot next year. Now, in Mbeumo as well, I'm going to kind of bring that in slightly as well. This is what I want this player again. I think he's going to be a transformative player. I think Cunha and him will work extremely well together. I think they'll be talking a lot. I think that's one thing we don't do on the pitch enough is talk, and that will infect other players. When you got players who are humble, who play football because they love playing the sport, that will infect the rest of the team. And when you've got players who will talk, who will shout and demand the ball, that will impact the team, and everything will go through those players. And even to the point where Fernandes, I don't know where the hell he's going to play. I don't know what position that he's going to play in that sort of number 8. I don't know if he's going to be a box to box sort of player. I'd love them to be screaming at him to basically to tell him. And again, Milton, you've kind of headed me off there as well. Cunha should be beneficial to Bruno. I'm hoping, or what should happen, and what. So Fernandes needs to be told next season, you stay in a position. This is your position. You no longer have that free role. You don't need to be up front. You don't need to be number 10. You don't need to be on the left wing. Your role is almost to be like a quarterback. That's what I feel anyway. He almost needs to be that sitting there. I don't even think he's box to box as such, but he almost kind of is that player. And you need to be past. And Cunha will be demanding that ball. So the fact he doesn't have to go into that number 10 position, we have those two number 10s. I think Fernandes, as long as he can, he needs to get into his head now. He's not a one-man team. You have players now that are there and that can do that job. So if he can sit back and the moment he starts pinging those stupid balls around, as long as he's playing those short passes, he's playing sensible balls and he doesn't start to run around like he does, then I think Cunha and Mbeumo will absolutely help him. So the knock-on effect, and I guess this is the point that I'm trying to make here, is that from Jar as well, is that Cunha is that player who will instantaneously, with his mindset but with his play, start impacting that team. So if Fernandes can calm down, then the whole team will start to be calm. So the whole team will start to kind of feel comfortable in the play. Only position that won't do is Onana. And I think as much as Cunha is going to be fantastic, I think the positive impact on the team is going to be great. I think that Mbeumo as well will be the exact same. He'll come in and be positive on that team, and that front three, that front 4-5 is it's just at the back. Is that Onana? I can see us next season being very frustrated in games we should have won. I think we'll play better football next season purely because we've only got one game a week. So I always forget about that now. One game a week, and Nana, unless he can have a worldy season, unless he can be completely retaught, unless he's gone to some mountain and learnt from an expert in a hut, I worry about that. So, Amarin, I think to go back to a point I was trying to make is that if Amarin, as long as behind the scenes, I think he is disappointed, he's not happy, he's pushing this club to get deals done. If that doesn't happen, and he toes the party line, and he doesn't, because Amrin's very good at making you read between the lines. So if he doesn't do that and he's perfectly comfortable and he's happy, then I think he's done already. I I almost feels like if he doesn't get his players in and Rashford's still here, and it's very difficult right now, and there's a lot of people who will be screaming and shouting and trying to get these players across the line and so, and I'm in agreement with that, and that should be happening. But I'm right now, I'm still going to get on at the club, and I'll still hold them accountable, and it's still not good enough. But I'm not going to necessarily stress myself out, because I've been looking at this window for too long. I've been looking at the last 12 years for too long, and the moment I allow myself to be happy with this window, or there was a season, right? And I tell you when the turning point for me was. So the season that we had Moyes, and we were going to get Tony Cruz, Fabregas, and we were linked. And I was convinced. I was absolutely convinced that we were going to sign these players. I was convinced that. And I was just like, wow, this is an amazing deal. And we ended up with Fellaini. But Fellaini was actually really good on FIFA 16, to be fair to him. But he were, and that is what they like to do to us. When we think we're going to be signing these great players, and this is where I think that we as fans need to keep talking about this. We 100% need to be talking about it. We need to be passionate on it. You must have seen some great players. Oh, those of us who are old enough. I mean, even, and I'm going to talk about this, and then we can come back to this. Is I remember seeing players like Brian McClare, Mark Hughes. I remember there's a player called Neil Webb, right? And I remember watching him, and he scored this amazing goal. And again, Neil Webb was this striker. He wasn't like the best striker in the world, but he just had that mindset. Irwin, Pallister, Bruce, Schmeichel. And this is not when I was like a young child. This is when I was like 8, 9, 10. Now really into football, love, and I was so blessed with these players. Irwin, Paul Parker. If any of you know him, he actually just lives around the corner from me. Paul Parker, Schmeichel, Bruce, Pallister, the Keens, Robson as well, towards sort of end of that career. I remember with the first time we won the league, and he was like, and we'd lost it to Leeds in 91-2, gutted. And then we won it then the next season, and we had Andy Cole up front, and, so what did Joel say? It's painful following a broken club for sure. The only thing that has sparkled some hope for the first time in years is we had black numbers instead of red. and these are the kind of small wins that we have to take, right? So I've been blessed. Even the likes, when those players start to go, and we had York and Cole and that kind of stuff. I'm very lucky to see the treble. I was 16 when that happened. Very lucky. And then even through the years, seeing the likes of Cristiano, 100% Cristiano, Cantona, Nani. Nani for me was I liked him, but I was always not on the fence about him. I just thought that he could have been better. I just thought that not because of his not because of his mindset, not because of anything else. I just didn't think he was. I don't know. He just lacked something. But he was physical, had a good shot. He was a good player. I just lacked something. But yeah, I've seen Forlan as well. People forget that Forlan was here, and when you rewatch some of Forlan's games, for the first couple of games he was awful. But Forlan, honestly, a cult hero, a really cult hero. Um, yeah, so back to I could talk about that. Those are my happy days. It's true. We are a broken club, and I just wonder when we're gonna get fixed. I think one of the last things I'm going to say on this is, would you take a relegation? Would you take a relegation as long as the Glazers went, Ineos went, we cleared house, and we almost started again? True. And you know what, Giggsy gets a lot of flack, and Giggsy, I am whatever he was or whatever he is as a human being. That's not for me to talk about, But as a player, watching him come through, Giggsy is one of the most underrated players. Now, you look at the comments that people make about Giggs, people don't realize when you didn't watch Giggsy live, or you didn't watch Giggs and you didn't live in that era, people just don't know. An absolute genius, an absolute just brilliant, and he should be in that Hall of Fame as well. So relegation. So I would take it. I would take it if it meant restarting this club, getting back to how we used to be, starting again. And it's really sad to think that everything that Fergie built, everything that we built, because of the lack of care. Because what these owners don't understand is that they are custodians. It's not their right to own this club, even though they think they do. They are answerable to us fans. Jacob Peter Sunday says, what is really going on with our transfers? That's a very, very good point. But to sum up, if you've just joined quickly, just before we go. So where are we? So we have Mbeumo. He's in LA. He's been extended time there, and I think that they are pushing this deal to get done. The two things I think are indicators, as we've mentioned in the chat already, that I think are going to get this deal done. Vlahovic, his contract has been ended. And why that's important is because he earns about 280 to 300 grand a week. So that frees up those funds. I know they've had to pay him off, but those funds are there. And United getting in some funds from Alanga and various other deals that they've done, I think it's about 12 million, as we've said in the chat there. So I think that is going to go to not only pay for the Mbeumo deal, pay that bit that we're like haggling over, but also Sancho to go as well. And I think that some of that will be used to pay him off, so he'll be gone. Rashford is still here. Rashford is actually come back to training. He's not training with the first team, but the circus around him is still here. The PR machine is here, and yeah, so he's back. So expect a circus. Around that. Malacia, it looks like he's going to Celtic for 3 million, and we've been linked to Aubameyang, and that's an absolute no from me. And I think the chat probably agree with that as well. Milton says the Glazers came close to selling, but we wanted. I don't think they had a choice. I don't think they were ever wanted to sell. I think they wanted investment. And I think, as it's been reported by other people over the years, I think it's Kieran Maguire, is that they wanted investment because of the regeneration. That is all they wanted to do. They come up with this back in 2018. They saw the land, and that's what they wanted to do. And this is why they're hanging in there. This is why Sir Jim is here. The only hope that we do have is if it doesn't go through, because what they want is they want the Manchester Council to pay for it. They want the UK taxpayer to pay for it, and they get a load of money out of it. So this is why they're still here. I think the only hope in terms of a money reset that we can have is if this falls through, and my fingers are absolutely crossed that there's enough people around there who can protest against this. Because why should the council, and I don't want to say this, but why should the council have to fund us? Why should the council have to fund these American leeches, who, by the way, don't pay any UK tax. So not only do they not pay tax, they don't even invest in their own club. They've never put a penny in, and they've lumbered us with a bunch of debt. And that is why they're here, is because they want to make a bunch of money, and so does Sir Jim. And that's basically that. So hopefully, some more positive news. I do. If you want to let me know some stuff, stick it in comments, because I will reply to you. So if there's anything that breaks on any of the today, any of the videos, just comment in there, and I'll jump on and we can talk about it. I really want to come on one of these and be positive, because if you look through them, I'm not negative. I do try to be realistic, and try to be balanced as I can. But I just want to come on for me personally, and be positive and talk about positive things, and then we can talk about Mbeumo, what we think he's going to bring to the club, and those are the conversations that I want to have, not these glazer out. Even though we need to keep on at these scumbags, I really want to talk about some positive stuff. So Joe, I'll give him the last word. We said there was a big chance of going into administration if the Glazers had not sold. We would have been in between 300 to 6 million in today. 100%. And I think we should end on this, is that this is the reason why and you can have your own opinion on this. Jacob Pete says, I guess they should have given Rashford another chance if he's. Ooh, I guess they should give Rashford another chance if he's ready to change. Oh, Jacob Peter. Ooh, that's I like that comment. I do. I think that's an interesting comment. I wish you'd have been here like midway through or at the start, because that's a really good. That's an interesting opinion on that. I think if that's where you are and you're willing to forget, then 100%. If you're willing to do that, I think you are a bigger person than I am. I think you are a bigger person than the club. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm not going to put a percentage. I think on a balanced view, Rashford doesn't want to be here. They've taken away his number 10. And I think as a player, I think that is a kick in the teeth. I think he's now kicking and screaming. I think he's here to cause as much trouble to you and to me, to us fans. And what I mean by that is that he wants to bring as much storm and attention to the club in a negative way, can negatively impact this club. And therefore, it's an up you to you. It's an up you to me. It's an up you to us fans, because what he wants to do is he's kicking and screaming because he wants his own way. But not for me. I think he's gone, and I think he wants to go. I think the club wants to go. If we give him another chance, we look absolutely weak. I think if we were to do that to try to save space, what's that? Space Cowboy says, have you seen the Galatasaray have offered Osimhen 16 million euros net, it's equivalent of 500k in the UK? Yes, I have seen that. The reports yesterday were like, that's what they've done, right? So even though they're in the Turkish league, and that's not to put that league down, they are making some waves this year. They are doing some good stuff and some good deals to try and compete. And the president came out and basically said that we want this player. We're going to do everything we can to get him. We're going to put in funding in place. We're talking to him. He knows that we want him. And that's what they've done. They've gone out and they've put funding in place to get him. What and what can you say? The fact that there are clubs now doing these sorts of deals and getting sponsorship to try to get these players to come to the club, and the fact that Osimhen supports United. Yeah, it's sad. It's sad that we've let a striker go. But I'm interested, and when we do sign a striker, I want you guys to come back into the chat and speak about it. Surprised it doesn't affect PSR. Our PSR, give you a sort of like heads up on our PSR. Stock exchange wise, we made £105 million loss. Okay, so you look at that and you go, we've made a loss. But we have another account called Red Football, which is on the Cayman Islands. PSR, we're absolutely fine. So that is what gets used for PSR, and we could spend 250 million this year and be okay with PSR. And as unbelievable as that is, we could actually do that and we'd be absolutely fine. Whether we've got the money or not to do that, we would be absolutely fine. So don't believe all this rhetoric about sell to buy in relation to PSR, because that's nonsense. The reason why we've got to sell to buy, and there needs to be a separation here from PSR and sell to buy. We need to sell to buy because we don't physically have the cash, because we've wasted it, not us as fans, but them. We have wasted all this money, but there needs to be separation between what this the club tried to blur the lines, and these other channels, and I'm not calling them out really, but they like to blur the lines. So those who have they talk to the club, they like to blur the lines between what's real and what's not. Now, I'm an accountant by trade, so finance-wise, I understand this. Not everything in depth, because football finance is different, but in terms of how people can manipulate their finance, is it interesting? So you can't separate these. You can separate the two, but so for example, us 105 mil loss on the stock exchange, but our PSR account, the other account that we use, we're absolutely fine. So we could spend 200 million. The reason why we don't is because we don't have cash and we need to sell to buy. So these are two separate things. So PSR for us is no issue. There's nothing to do with PSR, and so that could be the reason why Osherman can go there, because it really depends on how they structure their PSR as well. So there are lots of things that you can do. A good owner would be able to put in or sell the women's team. So we could sell our women's team and easily bring in that sort of money. I don't have an opinion on that. I'm not saying that that's what we should do. There's nothing against that. It basically, there are things that we can do on that as well, but we don't, because the Glazers don't want to spend money. So on that bombshell, guys, I am going to go. I can't believe this hour and 17 minutes has gone by. It's really quickly. You know what? I can't thank you guys enough. I love all the opinions on here. I think the different takes, the better, because I don't always think that we should agree. I always think that we need to have a balanced point. So whenever I talk about stuff, I do have an opinion, and there's some things I will not be changed upon. Doesn't mean that my opinion can't be not amended, but I think it's really important to get a balanced view. I will say one last thing on that before I do go, is that Onana, as it stands, is not going anywhere. He is sitting on his contract and he's refusing to go. We do need a number 2. So what I think is that we will go for a number 2, literally a number 2, and we will go and get a decent second choice keeper with the hope that he can outstun Onana. Onana won't go. And whatever you think about that, that's his right to do with his contract. So that's where we are with that. Guys, Space Cowboy, amazing chat. Milton, Bobby, Joel, Peter Sunday, everybody in the chat is fantastic. This is what I love. These are the conversations that we need to have, as a group of people. I think everybody in the chat is respectful. I think that these are conversations that we definitely need to have, and this is amazing. So I will be back. If there's any suggestions of content that you want to say or talk about, I'm happy to go. I'm happy to delve into the past. We can talk about the past. We can pick something, and I'm more than happy to jump back on and we can all talk about that. So if nothing breaks, interesting break, I try not to do too many shows just for clicks, because you'll get bored of it. And if I'm regurgitating the same stuff every single day, you're just going to get bored of me. So I want us to come here and have an interesting chat. So if something does break, I'll come back on. If not, I'll probably try and do around the same time tomorrow. Well, thank you guys for watching. You are amazing, and I will see you all tomorrow, or if not, if something breaks. But take care all, have a fantastic day, and I'll see you soon. Bye, guys.